Flower essences are made by taking either flowers and placing them in a bowl, or flowers, putting a bowl underneath a plant that is flowering. So this is when the plant is at its peak. And the water absorbs the vibrations, and then the water is taken and put into bottles and then diluted. And the way people take advantage of this is, instead of having to sit in front of their favorite flower and feel the vibrations that feel healing to them, they can actually take the liquid. You can either take it internally, or you can put it in your bath, or you can spray it around, or you can put it in the air. There's lots of different ways. Now, what's important is that these are not the aromatic plants only. Essential oils are the chemical composition of aromatic plants. So this is not essential oils, this is more subtle. And the beauty of flower essences is that twofold. One is that there are flowers that do not have aromatics, so there's no essential oil of them, or there are it's too hard to distill those flowers. They get ruined with steam when you distill them. The other thing is, essential oils are often too powerful for some people, and so flower essences are very subtle, and there is no way to cause any harm by taking the flower essences. So there are multiple companies across the planet that make these flower essences. So you can get flower essences from India and from Holland. You can get flower essences from England, all across the US, Australia. And so as a practitioner, I have about 2,000 of these bottles. And when a person comes to me, either by phone or video or in person, what happens is I help customize a blend that will support them in whatever it is that they're working on. So they come to me with their issues. We clarify what they want to work on. And some people go from the negative. I like to work from the positive, where I say, okay, so what I hear you saying is you're looking for confidence. Okay, so there's actually an essence called Confidence that's made by Indigo Essences out of Ireland. And actually, that's a gem essence combination. So there are people now making gem essences. Really talking about patterns inside ourselves, or inside our communities, or inside our governments, or inside whatever, that are not the highest good for the individual person or the group of people. So for example, people who, if we have, say, an issue of trust, okay, so we're finding it difficult to trust other people, so that we are not able to receive. That is a shadow element. If we have trouble telling the truth. There are people who, but because of childhood patterns or because of ancestral patterns, they have difficulty telling the truth and they want to be more truthful, but they're not quite sure how to do that. That's also a shadow issue, right? So it's there are ways to work with what you're talking about in terms of working with other beings who are impacting us, who we may or may not want their input. That's a different thing, and I do work a little bit with that with journey work. But yes, but this is, when I'm talking about shadow, I'm talking about those negative things that if we look at it in a movie, we say, wow, that's really not in the highest good. We can just, or we get that visceral gut feeling of, oh, I'm not comfortable around that. But we all have it. And my understanding is we are currently in a process where all that kind of stuff is coming to the surface so that it can come to light, so that it can be healed. And so many of us are working through some ancestral patterns. And these can be even ancestral patterns of, like, my family has cancer. Or, it doesn't have to be emotional, but often there's an emotional component. Flower essences mostly work with spiritual and emotional issues, but it can then have a physiological impact, right? Sure, Amy. Thanks for calling in. I'm happy to answer that. So, Rescue Remedy was my original introduction to flower essences. And unfortunately, recently, that company diluted the Rescue Remedy way more than what Dr. Bach, who originally founded it, intended. So there's another company called Healing Herbs, and they make a 5-flower remedy. For people who don't know what we're talking about, Rescue Remedy is basically the generic, I don't feel good, I'll take this, I feel more calm. I was actually reading books about natural medicine because my children were struggling medically, and I was struggling trying to support them. And so I read a bunch of different books, and somebody suggested flower essences. So I started using Rescue Remedy, and that worked really well for everyone and got us all calmer. And then there's a remedy called red chestnut. And red chestnut is a quintessential mother remedy because it is for people who worry too much about others. So that helped me take down my load of worry about them and just helped me to get more centered and So originally, at the beginning of the session, we talk about what 3 areas they want to work on. And then I have some other healing techniques that I work with where we release patterns from this lifetime that are easy to release. We release ancestral patterns, or even sometimes people absorb things from other people, like their best friend had a traumatic incident and they took it on themselves and it's held in the cells of their body. So, what we do is we release those, so that's all easy. And then I use kinesiology, muscle testing, to figure out which essences will support them to get where they are trying to go. And then, if I'm doing this remotely, I send them the essences. And then, once they receive them, we do the next process. If it's in person, I have a massage table and I have people mindfully take the essence internally while I'm holding the energetic field of their body, and they notice what's happening. Now, sometimes they'll just say, I feel it tingling here or moving there or whatever. Sometimes people go on a shamanic journey. It depends on the person what happens. It's been fascinating to me over the last 12 years as I've been doing this more full time to watch as that develops. So it's very individualized, both, the beginning process and the end, how people respond to it. And then people have that bottle of essences and then they take the essence. Some people take the essence for a couple of weeks and they feel like they're good. They have the information they need. They don't need it anymore. Some people take it for 2 months. You go to the store, a health food store, and you find a flower essence and you take it and you don't need it, there are no negative side effects. It just, I often think of flower essences as software. It's like you have the software, you know how to do certain things, but there's other things that you just can't quite figure out how to do. And it's often very subtle. It can be something like there's a block in you about being able to see clearly because, say, for example, there was something going on in your family where your parents weren't getting along and so you chose not to see. And so there is a flower essence of the alder tree. It's actually the flower of that tree that we use, and that's for being able to see clearly. Person wanted to become more flexible. She's a yoga person. I used to teach yoga, and she found that no matter how many poses she did, she still wasn't very flexible in her hips. And then she also wanted to have more confidence. So it can be like that. So for flexibility, I gave her dandelion flower essence. And what she found was that dandelion not only helped her be more flexible in her body, but she was also struggling with her husband. Her husband was smoking, and she wanted him to stop smoking, and he was having trouble doing that, and she was just getting frustrated. So she found that the dandelion helped her to be more flexible in terms of, this is his process, this is his path, my job is my process and my path. In terms of confidence, we worked with Angelica, okay? And Angelica, there are a couple of different companies who make the Angelica essence. Angelica is about being open to the unseen forces. Some people would call them angels, other people would call them devas. Whatever label you give them, there are unseen beings who are here to support us, compassionate beings who want to support us, and the Angelica helps us to be able to receive that support and that help. Right. So what happens is we work energetically on the first part, so clearing whatever it is that needs to be cleared. And there's a process I use where I have them do some things on their end while I'm doing things on my end, and then that are easy and simple to do. And then I mail them the bottle of flower essences that I have made. And then once they receive them in the mail, then we do the second part of the session, and they actually take the physical drops. And then they have the drops for however long they want to take. These flowers, the energy, the vibration, the energetic signature, however you want to say that, is preserved in water. And then a preservative is added so that the water doesn't go bad. And this originally, I knew from experience this was happening, but if people are curious about this, they can go look at Dr. Emoto, who died about a year ago, did some research on water and water crystals. And what he found was that if he had a bottle and he put a label such as confidence or love on the bottle, and then he froze the water and then looked at the crystals under the microscope, the crystals had this beautiful mandala, like a lovely pattern. If he put hate, war, crime, stealing, lying, whatever, it showed up as like a very discombobulated crystal. So this is, I think, why this works is because the energetic pattern of the flower. So we all, when we look at a rose, we know it's a rose, right? Because roses look a particular way. It doesn't matter if it's in India or England or Wales or South America, a rose is a rose. And so, how does a rose know how to be a rose? It's the energetic signature of the rose. And in yogic terms, We call this the deva, or it's the electronic energetic signature that is in the seed of the plant that makes it become a rose. So all oak trees look the same, all alder trees look the same. You know a peach when you see a peach, even if it's, a different kind of peach. It's this intelligence, this plant intelligence that is inside the plants that we are preserving in water. And then we are taking that intelligence into our bodies, and our bodies go, I know this energy. I know how to do it. Now, what happens, the reason we have to take it sometimes for 2 months is we take it and our body goes, ooh, that feels good. That feels right. I know how to do this. And then we forget because it's not part of our regular everyday. This hasn't been something we've known for a long time. It's like a little kid learning to ride a bike. At first it's a little clunky and they have to figure it out. But then once they've got it, they've got it. It's also like when you put new software on a computer, sometimes there's some glitches, right? But then you can trust that it's going to work. So sometimes it works in 2 weeks and sometimes it works in 2 months. But the energetic signature, that plant intelligence, is coming in and helping us to understand how to be that way. Like the reason dandelion works for flexibility, if you think about standing on a dandelion, after you're done standing on the dandelion, you go away and it pops back up, right? So this is its energetic signature. It knows how to be flexible. If you step on a rose, the rose is probably going to break. So a rose has different plant intelligence. All of the roses have plant intelligence about how to be in the heart. There's a newer company called Flora of Asia, and I was on a walk with her the other day on Saturday. She has made these essences from this Chinese herb garden that they planted in Glen Ellen, which is near Sonoma. And the many flowered rose is a Chinese rose. And the gift of that, the energetic signature of that is how do we open our hearts and bloom and use the gifts that we have to help serve the world. And each rose is unique. Each rose has its own pattern, its own information.